2020 after a hectic month full of our midterms and also assignments. So we are very glad to have two prominent speakers here today with us, which is Mr. Richard from Richard V. Chambers and also Mr. Jonathan from Zico Law, to enlighten us on the topic of essential skills within the legal industry, students edition. So this four series of webinars had received an overwhelming response and also positive feedbacks. So once again, we would like to thank everyone for the continued supports these 2 months, and also we hope that you found the webinar informative and also worthwhile. So without further ado, I pass the floor back to our moderator, Sherilyn. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina, for the warm opening speech. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed to our session today, allow me to introduce to you our 2 speakers. The first speaker we have here is Mr. Richard V, Managing Partner of the Messrs. Richard V. Chambers. Mr. Richard is an advocate for professional development, and he constantly sought to acquire new skills and knowledge outside of the legal field, and his achievement may be seen by holding a certificate in strategic conflict management for professionals awarded by the Singapore Mediation Center in 2011. Following in the year of 2016, Mr. Richard had also obtained a certificate of sports arbitration from the Asian International Arbitration Center, AIAC, which is an integral qualification for him to be prepared to his appointment as a sports arbitrator. And as of last year, Mr. Richard V was also appointed by FIFA and FAM to the Appeals Committee of the National Disputes Resolution Chambers. We look forward to his enlightening session later. And the second speaker we are honored to have with us here today is Mr. Jonathan Lim, Corporate Partner from Zico Law. Mr. Jonathan found his interest in fintech, and this can be seen in his previous experiences, such as being a corporate partner at a Malaysian law firm leading the fintech division of his firm, and also him leading 2 boutique property development companies as a director prior to joining Zico Law. His expertise lies in areas such as fintech, as mentioned earlier, venture capital, blockchain technology, payment systems, digital remittance, and initial coins offerings, and these are all substantially the financial areas of the digital world. Mr. Jonathan's involvement in the state sector has also extended to advising clients on compliance matters relating to regulatory developments in the industry as set out by the Malaysia's Central Bank and the Securities Commission of Malaysia. And as an advocate of the financial technology fraternity, Mr. Jonathan currently serves as the Secretary of FinTech Association of Malaysia, where he assists in developing the burgeoning sector's growth here in Malaysia. And we definitely look forward to his fruitful session later. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start the session, allow me to shed light to you on a topic that we are presenting today, which is the essential skills within the legal industry for students. Well, it goes without saying that all levels of students are required to procure practical experience for their future working life. Apart from being equipped with fundamental legal knowledge, the employability of a person is typically determined by employers based on several skill sets, such as effective communication, critical thinking, and time management, apart from producing an exceptional resume or CV. However, in this vast competitive legal field, the employment standard was generally propelled to a greater height, which currently the workforce appreciates and sought for individuals which are also equipped with additional knowledge and skill sets of different fields. As such, many prospective graduates and students lack of the competitive edge and marketability while job hunting, resulting in many lost opportunities. Today, we have 2 esteemed speakers here with us, and they will be sharing on the relevant skill sets sought after by employers, which includes but not limited to various soft skills and hard skills in technology, all which are integral in coming off the digitalization of the legal system. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I will now pass the first session to Mr. Richard Lee.
Hi. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Yes, clearly.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Richard V from Richard V Chambers. Firstly, I would like to congratulate MMU for holding this. annually, actually, I always look forward driving down to MMU to visit, and then so that after I can go and have your chendol and have a break in Malacca town. And in fact, in my firm, we have been very fortunate that some of our lawyers have been from MMU. And ever since MMU was first launched way back in 2006, 2005, when I was chairman of the Young Lawyers Committee, I used to travel to Malacca together with the Malacca YLC. We worked with your early versions of MMU when MMU was still at the time not recognized as a law degree. So we've come a long way. It's been 15, 16 years, and I'm quite honored to still be invited by MMU. And I thank you all for your interest in hearing my views. I'm also quite pleased to share today's webinar with a friend of mine, Jonathan. He's a renowned fintech lawyer and someone I respect in his field of work. And as you can hear from your president and moderator, Ms. Sherilyn, who mentioned a few times about my sports involvement. So while whether I like it or not, have been known for sports, but actually my firm, we do a lot more work than sports. We have work in startups, small work in fintech. We are nothing like Jonathan. We have a fair bit of company law disputes. We have a lot of corporate work going on. My firm is also doing a lot of work for logistics. And another area we do, which many people don't do, is tourism and hospitality. For some reason, my firm ended up doing a lot of work which other people don't do. Tourism, hospitality, sports, logistics. Now, I intend to go back to what I talked about here. There's the reason why I'm raising what I'm doing, to share with all of you how our firm and my lawyers, my colleagues, despite being a very small firm, Richard V. Chambers at the moment only have 4 practicing lawyers with 3 other paralegal and pupils. So in total, we have 7. We are comparatively a tiny firm compared to many other firms. And most of the time, we are punching above our head when we are going up against the larger firms. But today's topic, as Sabrina, who very doggedly looked for me despite our email got rejected. I don't know what happened there. Thank you very much for persevering, Sabrina. And I'm glad that I'm here today. But Sabrina has informed me that today's topic is about effective communication, critical thinking, and time management, which in a way leads towards a better CV. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I've had a few MMU lawyers coming in. In fact, some of my better lawyers and the lawyers which I respect because of the quality of the work they produce is from MMU. I've said this many times that I somehow am very fortunate to meet talented lawyers who are produced by MMU. At the moment, my lawyers, they're working with me. They are from all over, literally all over the world. They are graduated all over the world. They are very hardworking, very, very talented. And I like the way my team works. It's a good team that you have at the moment. So it's very important that when you join a law firm, that you assimilate yourself into the law firm as fast as possible. And in order to do that, in order to do that, your soft skills is crucial. I will leave Jonathan to speak about issues related to technology and issues related to skills related to technology. But for now, what I intend to do is to share with you the general expectation of employers when we look at engaging or employing future talents. So we all look at all of you as talents. Whether you're able to join us, fit in, develop, evolve, and in some cases, excel tremendously. Eventually, most lawyers will excel, but some excel faster than the other, eventually. Now, I normally start this kind of discussion by going back to an old case, and I'm not sure whether MMU refer to this case in tort. And this case is called White and Jones. I think in Malaysia it's called White versus Jones. But when you study from, I'm a London external student, so when we were studying London external, it's always known as Caparo and Dickman, Donahue and Stevenson, not versus. So in White and Jones, in this case, this is about a law firm. A law firm. This old gentleman, he has a will. The firm was drafted a will for him. He then got into the testator got into a conflict with the potential beneficiary. He informed his lawyers to change the will to remove this group of beneficiaries. So the will was changed at that moment in time. In fact, evidence indicate that the will was changed a few times, but we will refer to this one particular change. So the testator instructed the lawyer who received the instruction, took that communication, and then eventually effected the change in the will. Then many months later, the testator and the beneficiary, the relevant beneficiary, became friend again. First they all fight, then they became friend. Very common among this beneficiary, all that. So after becoming friend, the testator changed his mind and now informed the law firm to change the will again. He communicated the change to the solicitor. And of course, in England, it's a separated profession. So the solicitor got the instruction. And then, unfortunately, the testator shortly thereafter passed away. So when the will was taken out to be read, lo and behold, the will was not amended. The will was not amended. Now, all of you who are doing, who have done law of tort, will know that the duty of care in this case lies between the lawyer and the testator. There's a direct duty of care. You apply the Caparo and Dickman test, the Donahue and Stevenson neighborhood principle test. The lawyer and the testator have a direct tortious relationship, therefore making the lawyer having a duty of care. And the standard of care of a lawyer, of course, is of a higher standard. We look at the case of Hadley-Burn. If you are a doctor, you look at the Bolam's case. If you are a lawyer, you look at the Hadley-Burns case. Of course, now we look at the White and Jones case. But in White and Jones, what was important was the court, the House of Lords, expanded the duty of care to include the beneficiary who didn't pay for the legal fee, no relationship, no contractual relationship at all with the lawyer, but because they were going to benefit from the will, and they were relying on the lawyer to draft the will, and if the will has a blunder, the beneficiary will suffer. And it's too late to ask the testator to do anything because he's dead. Now that's the danger about the will. The will comes alive when the creator dies. It's dead when the creator is alive. That's how a will works. Now, why am I telling you this case? Because this case, the lawyer was sued for failure of communication. In fact, the issue of communication was dealt with by the House of Lords in 2 lengthy paragraphs. And they were talking about how the law firm worked, the communication of the law firm. And must take note, ladies and gentlemen, this was before your WhatsApp, before your TikTok. There was no TikToking to each other. There was no Google Hangout or Google Meet or Google Drive. No Microsoft email, etc. It was pure handwritten notes, handwritten book with a note given to the clerk. Now, it goes to show in this case, ladies and gentlemen, as a lawyer, how important communication is. It is so important that if you fail to communicate, you will be sued. And in that case, the law firm collapsed. And I understand the law firm had to close. So a lot of people lost their job because one person forgot to communicate properly. You see? So just to highlight to all of you, that when you become a lawyer, ladies and gentlemen, communication is no more about being friendly and just chatting with each other, keeping in touch. Communication is a way of your professional life. You will be defined by your communication skills. So therefore, what is it that we need as a communication skills? Now, of course, the White and Jones case is a very simple, basic, write a note, I give you, you follow. But I want to expand on the issue of communication for the next few minutes. Because when you become a lawyer, or when you want to become a lawyer, you should realize by now that if you are unable to speak well, or if you're unable to write well, you are in trouble, whether you like it or not. Now, I'm all right with lawyers who are reserved. I've met many lawyers who are very reserved, don't talk much, are unable to articulate well, but they write very well. They research well. They think very well. That is the other part I'm talking about, critical thinking. I'll go to that. But whether you like it or not, ladies and gentlemen, you really need to sharpen your communication skills. Read more English books. Read more Bahasa Malaysia book. Apabila kamu menjadi peguam di Malaysia, sama ada kamu suka ke tak suka, kalau kamu masuk ke mahkamah, lazimnya kita kena kecek bahasa Melayu. Negara ini negara Malaysia. Bahasa kebangsaan kita bahasa Malaysia, bahasa Melayu. Jadi kalau kamu tak boleh fasih bahasa Melayu pun, sekurang-kurangnya bolehlah bertutur-tutur. Jadi di mahkamah-mahkamah rendah seperti mahkamah magistrate, lazimnya mahkamah tu dia berhujah dalam bahasa Melayu. So you need to have a general knowledge and grip of the language. Okay? So I would, because we only got half an hour to do this, I cannot go into too detail, but I would recommend you to read really a lot more books. Your Harry Potters, your Berita Harian, your novel bahasa Melayu. Don't go and read the stupid novel lah. Some of the novel, oh Pontianak. That one can't go far. But read about the Malay literatures where the writing skills are very, very good. So these are two things you need to do. And if you are unable to speak well, maybe you should learn to communicate with your friend better. If you are Tamil speaking, Mandarin speaking, sure, no problem. But we don't speak Mandarin in court. We don't speak Tamil in court. We speak English or Malay. We don't do English or Malay. We do English and Malay in corporate deals. You ask Jonathan, all our corporate deals are English and Malay unless we deal with China. Then we have no choice. We have to converse in Mandarin. But in Malaysia, everything is English and Malay. So you need to learn to speak. One of the ways when I was studying law, I was a Malay speaking lawyer. Entire life I was speaking in Malay. I carried the English dictionary wherever I went when I was in my law school. Then I had a law dictionary. These two books was in my bag for 3 years when I was doing my London external. In the bus mini, those days we take bus mini, no money to take Grab, take bus mini. We were reading the dictionary. I didn't care that I look stupid, but I'm happy now that 20 years later, I'm able to speak with you in English. So that was for me important. I was a Malay debater in school, so that made it worse because my English was really weak. So my point is you need to grasp the command of the language. Okay? So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to become a lawyer, because we only have 5-10 minutes here, I can't go into too detail. For the issue of communication, you really need to improve it. How do you improve it? Read, write. Read, write. And don't write short form on WhatsApp. The short form on WhatsApp is not writing. Okay? And I'm not talking about, on the way is OTW. That is not good English. Write. And when you become a lawyer, you will soon see your letter writing skills are very important. Your email writing skills are very important. So I'll give you an example. If I'm writing a letter to Mr. Jonathan Lim, and the issue is about fintech, this is how I'll write. Dear Jonathan, warm greetings from Richard V. Chambers. I am Richard V., managing partner of Richard V. Chambers. We append this email to address this issue, ABC123. We are keen to cooperate with your law firm on this matter. We look forward to hear a positive response for you. Thank you, yours faithfully, Richard V. That's how you write, not bro, Ken, OTW, ZZ, 1123, yo yo, then link to TikTok. That's not what we talk. Okay, so social media, while it's been good for communication in terms of connecting with friends, have greatly destroyed the usage of proper Bahasa Melayu and English. It is time for you to get back to that. Right? Now, very simple. You look at your MLJ and CLJ report, your All Englands. Lord Diplo ever used the word OTW for on the way? If you can find that, then I retract whatever I've just been speaking for 15 minutes. Because none of the judges use short forms. So you shouldn't. The best way to learn how to write, look at the way the judge writes. The judge is also a lawyer. All judges got LLB. So they started studying as an LLB and then became a judge. If that's the way a judge writes, you should write like that. Understand? Can? Now, next one, another issue that I want to address is critical thinking. Now, this is very difficult to teach, to be honest with you. How do you teach someone to critically think? Now, one of the biggest challenge I noticed in the last 5 years, whenever I engage new lawyers joining my firm, and before my firm in Richard V. Chambers, which is only, actually Richard V. Chambers is only 15 months old. In fact, 13. We are only 13 months old. We just started in July last year. So before that, I was in a firm of Ma Wing Kwa and Associates with my good friend Raymond Ma. And we were engaging many lawyers because Ma Wing Kwa was a big law firm. And in both times, I noticed that lawyers, the young lawyers were coming in, either think in a narrow tunnel vision like this, unable to think out of the box, and very strangely, they are afraid to think. It's like they're scared of thinking. It's just everything they want to do is what I tell them. If I don't tell them, they just stand there and wait. This is what I've noticed the last 5 years. Which means either, and I don't think MMU will be very happy me saying this, either the colleges and the universities are not doing well, or you students are not doing well. I do not know. Either way, when you all reach my doorstep, that is what I see. So when what I train and what I encourage all of you to do is this. When it comes to critical thinking, I know this sounds very random, but all of you are now in your universities in Bukit Beruang. Nice university. Some of you got a car. Some of you stay within the campus. Some of you walk across the road. So when while you are driving in MMU and going to Malacca town with the 7500 traffic light, you know, Malacca got the world's most traffic light. Every 5 meter traffic light, right? Have you ever seen how many times our Malaysian motorbike traffic light red, they will still go straight? Because in Malaysia, motorbike got different law, car got different law one apparently. In motorbike world, red is green. So when you see this motorbike crossing the road, have you ever thought of the legal repercussions of what the motorbike is doing? Sit down and visualize. If that motorbike bang into the other car, who is wrong? What is the law? Who owes the duty of care? If I take the case to court, how many years do I send the motorcyclist to jail? If I'm the judge, how do I decide this case? Did I consider whether the motorcyclist is urgent? Maybe the motorcyclist's mother is ill. That's why he's rushing back home. Now, this is what I meant by random thinking as a lawyer. Because FYI, that is what I do all the time. And I think chances are Jonathan thinks like that also. That most lawyers, when we are free, we are sitting down thinking of how to solve our client's case. Right? And many lawyers have this problem. We can't sleep because our mind is thinking all the time. I sleep late every night. I just can't sleep. And I know many of my lawyer friends have the same problem. We can't sleep. It means we are thinking, yeah, Jonathan put his hands up. Yeah, bro. Correct, right? Can't bloody sleep. So, I encourage all of you to always look at any situation. So, for example, if someone is serving a coffee to you and the coffee spill on you, causing burn on your skin. How do you deal with that case? You see a poor dog walking in a Bukit Beruang, and one car came and horned the fella and nearly hit into the dog or hit into the dog. You get a number plate of the dog. How do you sue the driver of the car for injuring the dog? That is what I mean by critical thinking. Most students only think that what Mr. David say in MMU, that's it. This is the notes given to me. I study, actors ria, mens ria, that's it. That's all. You know? So when you come and practice, I give you an example. Your client wants to buy a property, but your client is in England. He can't come back. His money is in Malaysia. The property is in Kota Damansara. Kota Damansara property is leasehold, 99 years leasehold. The property is a Malay reserve land, and your client is an Indian gentleman. How do you solve this problem? How do you solve the problem? An Indian gentleman Malaysian Indian wants to buy a property and the land is a Malay reserve land. You see, these are the kind of things you have to solve. Start thinking one by one. The faster you get your mind thinking like that, the faster you become a lawyer. I always tell my law students and my interns who come and join my firm, stop thinking like a law student, start thinking like a lawyer. And what does that mean? A lawyer always finds solution. Look in the big picture. Put yourself into the client's shoe and what they want. And then reverse. Look back, left and right. From the top, look down. How do you resolve the problem? In my room, for example, I have a whiteboard. I'm old school. I'm from 1998, so that we use whiteboard. Every time we have a case, we draw out the whiteboard. A, B, and C. We draw the triangular, the arrows. Okay, A and B do what? B and C do what? A and B is contract law, B and C law of tort. So then you have to deal accordingly. You must learn to do this, ladies and gentlemen. If not, you will be left behind. Or chances are you'll never become a lawyer. Or you'll never be a good lawyer. Okay? So this is another area, critical thinking. Again, sorry, I cannot go into too deep, but maybe during Q&A, you can ask more questions. The last one, for this area before I go into CV is time management. Now, time management is, well, like today, look at this. Jonathan and I are given half an hour to speak. Time management. So while I'm speaking with you, I'm looking at the clock. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what should I say? Which will make sure I speak within half an hour. So I'm managing my time. Most of the young lawyers, and I was one of them before when I was a young lawyer 20 years ago, we struggle managing time. Everything is urgent. Everything must be done yesterday. So which one comes first? Now that, unfortunately, you need experience in order to build that kind of knowledge. But for now, this is how you need to do. Because you are still inexperienced in deciding which one comes first. So you need to cheat the way you do your work. While you may not know which one comes first, but you need to be organized. So for example, notwithstanding the existence of this, there is this thing called this. It's called a notebook. There's also this thing called pen. Many people don't realize this. This still exists. It's called pen. And this pen can still write down notes. So in most law firms, when you go and see people like Jonathan and me, you either bring an iPad or an iPhone to write notes or a book. And whatever your master tells you, you write down. So you manage time. Then every day before you go home, you check through what you did today. What you finish, you tick. What you haven't finished, you put an asterisk so that tomorrow it comes back. If you're leaving in your phone, what is done, you delete it, or you put it a tag that is done. Then you manage your time. So next morning when you come in, on the way to office in the morning, you can check your messages. But personally, I'm old school. I prefer it written in the book. So in my office, I have a notepad with all the second-hand papers. And you know, we all lawyers, we photocopy many papers. and there'll always be some unused papers or wrongly photocopied papers. So to save paper, I take that, I have a clip and I write down 15th of September 2020, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 14th of September 2021. So I keep the paper. Whenever I finish, I cut. That's how I manage my time. You know. So then I encourage my lawyers to do that. So all my lawyers, they have a particular timeline, and every 5-10 minutes, something urgent comes up. So they need to learn to manage. So it's very important that you do not procrastinate. When your firm gives you a work to do, you do it and finish it, not do it tomorrow. Because you'll never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You understand? So it is important then, when you do your time management, that you need to learn to decisively plan your work. At the same time, you need to see the culture of your law firm. Different law firms got different culture. Study your master. Study the partner that you're working with. Your partner got a particular skill. If your partner always write on a piece of paper, then chances are you should also learn to write on a piece of paper. And especially the first few days of work with your master or your partner, there's no harm asking him or her that, but sir, or Mr. X or Madam X, how do we do this? You know? So these are some soft skills, which means this comes back to communication, the first topic. How to communicate with your master. Learn about decorum. Your master is your master, not your bro. You know, you don't say things like, "Wow, Mr. Richard, you damn cool." That's you don't have to say that. You know, just do your work. So, but at the same time, you need to learn to be friendly. You need to have a professional, friendly relationship with your master. If you can become friends, good. If you can't, it's all right. Just maintain a professional, friendly relationship. You don't have to be best friends with your master or your partner or your colleagues. But it's important you maintain a good relationship. Understand what they want, how they do the work. Then you dive into it. You must understand that you are the new kid on the block. And the firm has been around for a long time. So you have to work with the firm, not the firm work with you. So now comes to the part about, before I go into the CV, all this I mentioned to you, there's another folly I notice among young lawyers. They assume that when you join the law firm, that the law firm is an extension of your university. That I am here to teach you. That is so wrong. So very wrong. All law firms are not here to teach you. You are here to work with the law firm. While working, you will be trained. It is for you to train yourself. We will teach you as much as we can. But we are not a law school. We are all law firms. As a law firm, we are responsible and accountable to our clients. We are responsible and accountable to the court of law. When we go to court, we are the officer of court. We have to answer to the judge, not to you. And never ever give your work to your master, hoping the master will pick for you yes or right. Your master is not your English teacher. Your senior is not your school teacher. They are your lawyer. When you give your work to your senior for them to go through, it means you are very proud of that work. That is the best work that you can do. Not give it and say, don't worry, Jonathan and Richard will amend it. That is a wrong attitude. So all this comes back to your attitude. I can teach you on effective communication, critical thinking, and time management, but if you don't have the good attitude, then you won't go far. The attitude must be someone like a sponge. You join a law firm, you're like a sponge, absorbing everything which comes to you. Ability to adapt, ability to adopt, ability to evolve. You must be fluid. You must be able to change. Not the law firm change for you. You understand? You have to understand the lawyers, they have a lot of work to do. The KPIs, the deadline, the chasing. So it's strange. It's very strange that law firms have to bring in young lawyers, young pupils, pay them some demanding exorbitant allowances, but doesn't know how to draft a letter of demand. Don't know what is CTOS. Some worse, I found out, never opened an MLJ before because the college give them all the information. Don't even know the MLJ is green in color. So this is strange. I think you should be paying us if you want us to teach you. Because when you go to MMU or your colleges, you pay them fees. Correct? So you must understand that, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give this talk to wake you all up. That when you come in, and most of you, I understand here, are second, first year students, some are fourth year. Yeah, Jonathan, thanks. When you come into join Jonathan and I, we are more than ready to guide you. We want to train you. We want you to be the best possible lawyer. A good lawyer in our firm is never frowned upon. I am happy when we have good, effective lawyers in the firm. But we are not a law school. I am not Professor X. We are not X-Men. I wish we have the power to read the judge's mind, but we don't. So that is why the faster you get used to the fact that when you join a law firm, you're joining a profession which has been running for many, many, many decades. The faster you assimilate, the faster you become. So when you, therefore, when it comes to the CV, when you put all this in the CV, you need to illustrate to your master that you have this ability, that you have the ability to communicate, that, you know, despite you're studying law, you have the time to join St. John's Ambulance, you are a renowned badminton player in MMU, you are Dota 2 champion. You know, these are things law firms do look out for. Mooting skills, book prize winner. You don't have to be I'm sure Jonathan will agree with me, you don't always have to be the first class. You know, even if you are able to work with us, that's important. For me, this one I speak on my behalf. When it comes to my law firm, and every law firm that I work with, when I interview a law student, I interview them to see whether they can work with my lawyers and myself. You don't have to be a first class or a third class, I don't care. Can you work with us? And in order for me to pick up the phone call and call you for the interview, because sometimes I actually pick up the phone and then speak to the pupil on the spot, it's because your CV must be sufficiently attractive for me to call you. And the CV must show that the ability that you can speak, you can write, you can talk, you have skills to effect time management. So, like for example, your current president, Sherlyn, I'll be impressed when she applies because she's an MMU student and she's a president. You know, and especially if she's doing fairly well in the exam, say, wow, not bad. So immediately I assume she can manage her time. Of course, in every interview, there is a 50-50 that the CV turned out to be wrong. But that's a risk that we employers have to take. You understand? Now, before I pass the mic to the MC, I want to say this, because during Q&A, I don't think I have time to say this. This is, I used to lecture ethics class every month in the Bar Council before the ethics program now went online. And I always lecture the ethics pertaining to the role of a lawyer in the in a society. What is your role of a lawyer in society? And this is an example I always want to give to pupils. I always ask all pupils, I'm sure all of you have gone to the mama stall before, Beruang there, Bukit Beruang. And when you sit down and eat, when you order your food, you tell the mama fella, Maggi mi goreng satu, tambah sayur. Or Milo dinosaur, tambah Milo. Teh tarik kurang manis, satu ketul ais. Holic campur Milo. Wow, all kinds of things. And then when the mama fella serve you the Maggi mi goreng, you say tambah sayur, he give you more sayur, chances are you'll be upset. You'll be upset. You'll be upset the mama fella say, come on man, simple thing like that, so you make a mistake. And if the mama continue making the same mistake, chances are you won't go back to the mama stall anymore after that. Same thing. How many of you here have had friends, or you yourself, who fall ill at 2 a.m. in the morning and have to rush to the hospital. Have you ever heard of a situation when you go to the hospital, the doctor tells you, I'm sorry, I need a work-life balance. I only work 9 to 5. You wait for me until 9 o'clock. I come back at 9 o'clock. Have you ever heard of that? Have you ever heard of somebody calling the bomba, and then the bomba said, today aku tengah lepak lah, so I'm working 9 to 5 only. You wait first. Your fire burning, I come at 9 o'clock. You notice it doesn't happen, right? Now, in all three examples I gave you, the mama fella is frying the Maggie mee for you. When you're ill, the doctor take care of you. When your house is unfortunately on fire, the fireman will come and save you. And in all three situations, when they don't do it, you get upset. When you become a lawyer, what are you? Are you the person who's ordering the mee goreng? Or you are the mee goreng fryer? Are you the person who is ill? Or are you the doctor? Are you the person who's calling because your house is on fire? Or are you the fireman? When you become a lawyer, ladies and gentlemen, you are the Maggi mee goreng seller. Every day, you will meet a Carlyle against Carbolic smoke bomb. Mrs. Carlyle will come to see you, asking you for advice. You have to give her advice, a specialized, customized advice only for her. Just like the Maggi mee goreng without sayo. You will need to give advice at any time of the day, even at 2 a.m. Because a doctor and a lawyer, we are on call all the time. You cannot have a call from a client and say, I can't talk to you. I only work 9 to 5. It doesn't work that way. You are all going to be a fireman, on call all the time. You are always putting out fire every day. Ladies and gentlemen, in a few years' time, you are going to be a service provider. When you go to the Starbucks, you order a drink, in a few years' time, you will be the person behind the counter and say, good afternoon, sir. You want extra double shot, latte, with or without cream? What is your name, please? And then they take the thing and write your name. You are going to be that person in about 18 months to 24 months' time for those third-year law students. You must learn to accept that you are a service provider, which means if you don't do your Maggi mee goreng correctly, your client will be very angry with you. Just like you are angry with the Maggi mee goreng guy. So that's what I meant. That the faster you accept that you're going to be a lawyer, think like a lawyer, the better you become. Okay? Now it's 2:45. I've taken up a bit more time than expected. But I'll come back later for Q&A. Can? Right? So thank you for listening to me for the last half an hour. In summary, I'm talking about effective communication, critical thinking, time management, putting all these three into your CV, and then the fact that in a few months' time, you are going to be a service provider. The faster you accept that you're going to be a service provider, the faster you can become an effective lawyer. Okay? I would like to pass the mic back to Sherlyn, our moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Richard, for the light-hearted yet insightful session. I believe that Mr. Richard has set the tone well by substantially highlighting the few important attributes that we need to embrace. And definitely from today onwards, I'll also start to do some random thinking. But before that, allow me to welcome Mr. Jonathan, our second speaker of today, to present his session, mainly on the digitalization of the legal fraternity. So on that note, Mr. Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Right, thanks, Sherlyn. Good afternoon, everyone. It's definitely a pleasure to be able to share my insights today with all of you on the digital frontier. You all can hear me well? Because I didn't put on a mic like Richard. But firstly, before I start, let me just thank Sabrina and MMU for the kind opportunity and the kind introduction. Likewise, also to Richard for the kind opening. Richard has been a veteran in the legal fraternity, and truly he is someone that I respect, place much respect in as well. But I reckon he was truly too modest in the introduction of his law firm. Richard is definitely one of the few sports lawyers we have in town in Malaysia itself. So before I jump into my presentation, just a light introduction as to who Syed Ibrahim and Co. is, or rather in short, we call ourselves Zico Law. We are perhaps, I think, the only regional law firm in Southeast Asia. We have 18 offices in 10 ASEAN countries, and we are a full service firm, save for criminal matters. So just a little caveat, I'm not as eloquent or articulate as Richard, who's truly a veteran. So I humbly prepared some slides to keep me guided as I share my thoughts this afternoon. I can't speak freely like Richard. I have to admit that in a sense, yeah.
Sorry, this is what we call talking nonsense. 20 over.
Too modest, Richard, too modest. Very
Okay,
impressive.
all yours. Sorry.
No worries. Yes, okay. Okay, I think I really enjoyed what she has just shared, and I think he did place a very, very good foundational guide to all of you. And truly, you won't imagine the kind of practical issues we face with young minds like all of you nowadays, and how the expectation of work and play has differed. But I'm not going to touch on that. I'm going to let you guys be drilled a little bit more by Richard later during Q&A. I'm just going to jump straight into development of digital technology in Malaysia and what you young minds should be a bit more aware of when you come into market in time to come. Okay, so if you look into perhaps the chronology of how technology has been evolving, or perhaps if I may put it correctly, the industrial revolution back in the 60s all the way now to the 21st century, you see that there are much changes in the technology market. Of course, first thing that's running in your mind now is that how is this relevant to us as lawyers at the end of the day, right? But as clearly mentioned by Richard just now, the legal fraternity or lawyers itself, we are perhaps the second oldest industry in the entire world, whereby we have a lot of tradition, we have a lot of culture, we have a lot of legacy being embedded in this entire field. And I would truly hope that each and every one of you are inspired enough that the day you graduate, the day you're called to the bar, you would keep your head up high to recognize that indeed this is a profession whereby we have a generous amount of history, a generous amount of duty, and then we shape how most of the financial transaction or even regulatory frameworks that allows a harmonious culture to be developed as we go along. So anyway, coming back to the slide, you will see that in the 60s, we talk about semiconductor microprocessors, and you jump straight all the way to the 80s, you talk about local networks, and then you have the internet. And eventually now in 2010, all of you will be using a smartphone. And that smartphone allows you to have what we call as an API, right? And now from the days where credit cards was being used, we have moved from the scene whereby you have this little plastic that you run around with to now what we call as an electronic wallet. Now the next slide shows how in 2019 we have actively onboarded the amount of people onto this digitization agenda. Right? Why do I use that word digitization? And this is somewhat slightly different from for those of you who perhaps were young enough to be in the era of the dot-com boom. This is the time where I think most of you, if you have young nieces or young siblings at home, you realize that at the infancy age of 1 or 2, when they start walking, they walk up to your TV screen and start swiping, right? No longer you open up your laptop and you start typing and go into a URL to find things. But today, what you guys do is you pick up your phone, you click a button, you start swiping and you start looking at for information that you want to look for. Now, why is this very important? I'm going to start off firstly with the financial technology industry. And why financial technology? Because that practically is the foundation to what we live on today. This is basically how we transact. Yeah, from the early days whereby you keep money in your wallet to perhaps buy a can of Coke, to the days whereby you can actually put in a 50-cent coin into a vending machine, and thereafter that you actually get a can of Coke, to where you are today whereby you click on your Grab Pay application onto Grab Food, and then you get your can of Coke delivered to your house. Now, in all that, as a young counsel, as a young lawyer or a law student, what do you see? I would think that all of you, your young bright minds, will see that there are contracts being created as we go along. Transactions are being made. You have your traditional common law of offer and acceptance. You have your traditional common law of consideration at the end of the day. But how is this documented in today's world compared to how we used to have pen and paper? You have someone that comes in and gives you a receipt. See, fintech, to start off, is nothing. It's not really too much a buzzword. It's nothing too sexy, as I may use it. Fintech is nothing more than just financial technology, right? And financial technology, at the end of the day, is just basically digitizing what traditional mode of transactions are into a more seamless way of transacting at the end of the day. And over the past 2 or 3 years, we will see that there are much efforts being taken in terms of transforming traditional views of industry into a digital world. For one, it will be insurtech. If some of you who have heard of insurance tech in China, it is actually a very, very robust application whereby now people offer lifestyle insurance. If you were to go rock climbing today for that short period of maybe 2 hours, you can buy a maybe 5 ringgit insurance just to protect you for that 2 hours. No longer you guys need to buy a long insurance scheme and touch wood, something do happen, you slip, you fall, then you claim, and perhaps that slip and fall doesn't fall within the category of what you have signed up for in the policy for the coverage as well. So today, the curation or rather the introduction of a digital mindset has allowed not just industry to evolve, but it allowed it to somehow cater to the lifestyle of you young minds today. So that's why you have things like insurtech, regulation technology, robo-advisory, and blockchain, which I'm very sure all of you are well abreast of. When I talk about blockchain, I can almost say today, which I'm taking a little bit more comfort, is that 50% of the crowd might just think of blockchain as Bitcoin, but I need to correct that misconception. Blockchain is the technology, the distributed ledger behind the currency issuance and the currency transaction of Bitcoin at the end of the day. Yeah, these are some efforts where central bank and SC has taken in the past 4 years in trying to get our nation into a more digitized agenda. In 2016, we talk about the regulatory sandbox that Bank Negara has actually issued, and this was in line with United Kingdom, Hong Kong, and Singapore, where each and every central bank actually came up with this little piloting project. So what is this sandbox all about? I mean, in its literal sense, it's like as though young little kids jump into a sandbox and start playing within the sandbox itself. It's largely an incubator whereby Bank Negara would provide you some supervision that allows you to then grow your startup or your concept or your business model within 12 months, just so that we can monitor and supervise you to see whether that particular solution that you're proposing will fit into any laws eventually. So in 2017, SE came up with the Digital Investment Management Framework. That is something whereby we recognize it as robo-advisory. So players like StashAway, players like ITO, these are the guys that actually hold licenses like this, right? And in 2019, of course, this is something a little bit more robust. With the previous government, we actually managed to have the digital exchange assets, your cryptocurrency assets, being provided a guideline whereby now we have Luno, we have Tokenize, and we have Signergy as the 3 license holder. Now, why am I sharing all this with you guys? Because technically, as young lawyers, as you're going to start coming out into the market, what is very important during my days compared to what's very important during your days to come is going to be very different. As a young lawyer, when I first started off, I wanted to be a renowned corporate lawyer at that point in time. And I always was very fascinated with the capital markets. I was very fascinated with how the corporate transactions and corporate structures were at that juncture. So in order to allow myself, like how Richard was sharing, in order to put yourself in a position whereby you could perhaps accelerate your learning process or accelerate your training process, what do you need? Of course, you need critical thinking. But on top of that, it will always be very beneficial if you then understand the commercial angles of things in order for yourself to be a good corporate lawyer. Yeah, there is no point, as Richard shared just now, there's no point me regurgitating a law to you today. There's no point that I just quote a section and say that this is a section of the law, therefore you cannot do yes, A or B. What is important as counsels today is that we are able to understand and cater to the needs of our clients, right? But I don't mean illegally, but within the framework and the parameters of the law at the end of the day. So during my days, having an additional knowledge in terms of accounting standards, having the additional knowledge of understanding the banking jargons will be very, very beneficial. Now, coming into the digital arena today, coming into understanding not just having a strong foundation in law in terms of the law of contract, but being able to bring back into a digital world is what is going to be very crucial. But before you can even embark into that, you must first understand what the lingua or what the transaction of the digital world is all about, right? So yesterday, as I was having a mock chat with Sabrina and Sherilyn, I was sharing a little bit. I was saying, yeah, what happens today if I actually go onto one of these API Play Store, and then there's a set of T and Cs that comes out, and at the bottom of T and C, it just says that put a tick on this little box, and it will mean that I've read and I've accepted the terms. Now, is that recognizable within your laws of contract? If you do not have a strong foundation of what you understand in terms of your traditional legal requirements, then the question I would pose to you and challenge you is that if I just click, yes, I accept, I didn't sign the agreement one. There is no parties to it, isn't it? Then am I not bound? Now, clearly, that assumption is incorrect, yeah? And I'll go down and explain to you guys that we have sufficient legislation like the Electronic Commerce Act that recognizes electronic signature. What I just described was what we call as a click wrap agreement, whereby if there's sufficiency in terms of identifying who the party that clicks the yes, and we have the infamous case of Yam Kok Singh, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to relook at it, whereby the judge actually embraced the contract being formulated through WhatsApp at the end of the day. So as long as the elements of contract, and you look at a contract side, there is no real requirement for you to actually sign off at the end of the day to have a contract recognized. But what I'm trying to explain to you guys here is that you must first understand your laws foundationally, and thereafter be able to evolve it to what is being provided today. Yeah, and the regulatory sandbox by BNM was one of the most commendable initiative I would say the central bank has initiated in 2017. This is a time whereby you have startups that introduced introduced new business models in the market, which did not fall within or did not fall squarely within the existing regulations that we have in Malaysia. One of these guys who is also the only graduate is a good friend of mine who runs Money Match. And Money Match was running a digital remittance company at the point in time. And their business model could not fall within the verticals of the Money Business Services Act at the end of the day. And the sandbox that was introduced by Bank Negara actually provided them the avenue for it. But yet during this engagement that they had with Bank Negara, it allowed not just the central bank or the industry player, but lawyers like ourselves to then start looking into the gaps that may exist in our current legislation so that we can then either propose reforms or propose practice notes or propose guidelines to cater for this. But again, all this can only happen if traditionally your foundation of what you know is firm enough. Okay? So what I've just shared is mainly the financial market. Is where I hope to entice you guys when you do come out to market. These are all the financial system, payment systems, advisory, all these startups that we're talking about that we will be advising, or that you will be advising at the end of the day. But the next question that I want to put, or rather next topic that I want to address is more towards, then what about legal tech on lawyers at the end of the day? Now, legal tech is nothing new. Legal technology has been around for more than, I would say, 10 years by now. And if you look at these particular softwares that I put in my slide, whether it's Luminance, Librio, Leviton, Kira, Legal Robot, these are all some of the more famous APIs where the Magic Circle has already started adopting. So Magic Circles will be the larger law firms and globally, players like Allen Overy, players like Linklaters. They have all started using legal technology to assist the provision of their legal service at the end of the day. Now, what does Luminance do? Luminance basically is a platform for document review. In other words, it is technically our so-called AI that assists us with the due diligence process. Now, if I'm going to throw some of you who have done internships, some of you who perhaps would have some exposure in law firm, you will see that we need a lot of body count when it comes to due diligence, right? We need to throw as many as we can. The cheapest labor that we can find is interns at the end of the day. And we'll just throw you guys into this little data room and say, copy every single paragraph that you can copy if the counterparty doesn't allow us to have a copy of the documents. And at the point in time, we have no expectations whether you can actually churn out what's relevant or not. So we run with this fear as Richard clearly shared, and the nights that we can't sleep because we're not sure whether our interns actually copied the right thing and whether diligence is done correctly or not. So Luminance was a program or API that was created that allows us just to feed everything into this particular platform, and that itself will run a document review on our behalf. There are softwares like eDiscovery in the market, which also runs the same for litigation, whereby if you click in, say, a matrimonial matter and a keyword, it will summarize for you the respective cases and it will allow you a speedier access to knowledge at the end of the day. Now, this is what's happening now. This has been what's happening 5 to 6 years ago. Then the next question I want to pose that perhaps may provide some form of insecurity is that if I have all this software, do I still need a year 1 and year 2 lawyer? Do I still need the same amount of body count that I need in a due diligence exercise today? Okay, something to think about. Now, this is just a short analysis as to what the Magic Circles has been adopting when it comes to legal tech. There is Clifford, we took this off the internet and then we just thought this is something for you guys just to be aware of, that players like Clifford Chance, firms like Allen Overy, Linklaters, Slaughter & May, they have all started to take on legal technology as part of their entire working experience so that they can provide better services to the client in a speedier manner. Now, that being said, the Malaysian government or Malaysia has not been left far behind as well. We also have our e-filing services when it comes to whether it's stamping or whether it's civil matters or whether it's criminal matters, we actually have an e-filing mechanism. We also have e-reviews, and I think Sabah was very progressive in introducing AI in terms of providing a sentencing guide. And of course, during the MCO, I think that was a wake-up call for the world to realize that contactless and the digital agenda is really a necessity today to determine, to ensure that the economy continue to progress. And that will also then arise, or rather help cater to the gaps whereby if today I need a power of attorney or I need something to be signed off by a commissioner of oath, how's that going to happen if I can't meet my commissioner of oath or I can't register the same in the High Court? So these are what the Malaysian government has taken some active steps in trying to onboard the nation into a more digital-based agenda. Now, what legal frameworks do we have in Malaysia? A very brief guide. This will be, we have the Electronic Commerce Act. We have, of course, our Consumer Protection Electronic Trade Transaction Regulation. We have the Consumer Protection Act. We have Digital Signatures Act. We have Computer Crimes Act, which all are already available to embrace the upcoming digital agenda at the end of the day. But like I said, these acts were created many years ago, And I would still say that they are rather encompassing. In any event, there should just perhaps be very sub-legislations to be introduced to accompany these main legislations so that we can embrace the digital agenda as we go along. Okay, so points to ponder. Are the current legal framework sufficient to accommodate for transactions? When we talk about artificial intelligence, who's actually liable? Is the data developer that is the person that should be liable? Is always the AI itself? Or what will be the future landscape of the legal field? Or are lawyers at the end of the day going to be replaced by artificial intelligence in the future? So basically, these are just some thoughts for all of you to think about. Because as you come up to the market in the next 2 to 3 years to come, I think the landscape that we're looking at is going to be very, very different. And in order to differentiate yourself, and if you were to ask me, if I were to onboard an intern today, or to onboard a young pupil today, what would I look for? I'm not expecting you guys to perhaps have a skill set whereby I learned or I have a certificate to know how to code. I don't need you guys to go and learn Python or one of those coding softwares at the end of the day. But I think there needs to be a deep understanding of not just looking at the digital world in its own form, but be able to integrate the digital world to the financial sector and holding it through legal frameworks at the end of the day. Now, what I'm trying to say here is this. Many years ago when I was in my year one, and I remember one of my partners used to tell me, he used to share and say that, there was an occasion whereby he talked about a transaction that he was in. And he said the client was not very impressed with a set of I guess, first-class, top-notch Ivy League or Osbridge lawyers, where they just went up to him and regurgitated the law. Clients are very impressed if you're able to understand the commercial angle that they're looking for in their transaction itself. So therefore, it is not about how much, I wouldn't say, let me recorrect that. It is not about knowing your law and applying it, but understanding how you can apply your law that meets the needs of your client at the end of the day is very, very crucial. And I think that's the extension of what Richard was trying to share in terms of critical thinking. To me, at that point in time, and even at this juncture, I look at young minds and I say that you guys need to be very commercial. Don't come up to me, and I really love what Richard just shared. Don't come up to me and tell me the 3 words that I hate to hear most, which is I don't know. Okay, there's no such thing as I don't know in the legal fraternity. Yeah, if you don't know, what do? You work harder to look for an answer. If you don't know, then what do? There has to be something correct. That is for your partner or your supervising superior to work alongside with you. But never ever walk up to your superiors and say that this piece of work, I don't know. Because there is always a way, and especially today with the internet today, with the accessibility of information being so easily obtained, it's really difficult, isn't it, to say that I don't know. Because I can easily tell you guys, ask you guys about a particular lifestyle, a particular pop culture, a particular perhaps superstar, and you will be able to access your TikTok, your Instagram, your Facebook, and start stalking the guy and be able to tell me what his date of birth is and what his favorite color would be, and then what sneakers he's wearing. And then you will even tell me that, oh yeah, just 5 minutes ago on Twitter, he has just broke up with this particular person. Now, if that kind of information and that kind of research skills that you have can be then rechanneled into embarking and understanding how the digital world is going to work, then I think there's a very long runway for all of you when you are able to amalgamate your legal knowledge into the digital agenda that is definitely going to be around and is definitely going to be shaping the landscape of Malaysia in the next 3 to 5 years to come. Now with that ends my presentation, and I'll pass the time to Sherilyn to perhaps move to Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jonathan. It was indeed a very enlightening session, especially how law is slowly adapting to the advancement of technology. However, the central knowledge and the principles of law still remains fundamental and relevant. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move to the question and answer session. And the whole session would be 20 minutes. So for participants in the Zoom meeting room, you may type up your questions in the chat box, or if you like to ask your questions verbally, address it to two of our speakers, you can also indicate your name and that you would wish to raise a question. And for our audiences on Facebook, you might drop your comments below and pin your comments so we can also address these questions to the speakers. So perhaps we can start with this question that I have in hand now. So from a point of a fresh grad or as a student, the first step to applying for a position in a firm would be by email, and students would usually attach their CV or resume with a cover letter. So to both of our speakers here, what are the key points that we should include in our CV or resume? And actually extending from this question, which form of document is more preferable? Is it a CV or a resume? So perhaps, Mr. Richard, would you like to first address this question?
Thanks for asking the question. Personally, Sherilyn, the last point you asked, CV or resume, to me I don't think this is universal. I don't really care actually whether you send which one, so long as you send me something. I don't really look too much into form. I look more into what is content. That's but let's say just me. Some lawyers are very procedural, so then you have to comply accordingly. Now, with regards to the content, of course, logic will dictate that we need to know that you pass your law degree lah, for you to be in front of us lah. No law degree, why are you here? And then if you did your bar or your CLP, what do you do? And for me personally, being a former CLP grad, I understand the challenges. I think it's very important for you all to study the law firm that you're applying to, and especially if it's a small firm like mine. To be fair, when you apply to Zico, how lah? So many partners. How do you cater to so many partners unless you're targeting Jonathan directly? But if you're targeting my firm, then you should know that Richard is a LLB London external. So he doesn't think like the way all of you think, because he went through London external. And then he did CLP. You didn't do CLP. So which means my CV, chances are, won't relate to Mr. Richard, because I'm not like him. So therefore, you need to write in your CV what you did in your law degree. And then if you can attach your results, which I think is your resume, then that will be helpful. Then I can see what you do for your results. At the end of the day, most lawyers will first be attracted to your results. That's the truth. No matter what lawyers say, if you got first class, second class, third class, they will look at the first class first. It's natural. Right? They'll flip through. And then I will look at activities. What activities you did. Don't tell me you're a horse riding champion lah. Huh? I don't need to know that. That has no value. You may be a minister's daughter who ride horses with the father, but not relevant to us. I want to see the skills connected to the profession, research skills, communication skills, PR skills, business development skills, all these small skills that we would like to have a look at. Then again, I don't think Zico can do this because of the nature of the firm. But even when I was in Mawing Kwai and now in my firm, I have a tendency to just pick up the phone and just call the person. And then I speak to the pupil. I always find that to be the best interview, because that is where the pupil genuinely have to answer, because he or she got caught off guard because got a call from me. And that's where I can see whether are you able to fit in or not, and I call you for a second interview to come to my firm. So many firms have different style. It's good to ask around how other firms work. Talk to your seniors. MMU got many seniors. Talk to your seniors. Find out about seniors. Those who work in Zico before, ask them. Say, hey, look, I want to join Zico. How do I do? Blah blah blah. Hey, I want to work with Richard. Do you know anybody? Also, so and so used to work with Richard. So call the fellow and say, hey, I want to work with Richard. How is he like? Find out lah. And please don't send me an email to say to whom it may concern. Please lah. Please write, dear Mr. Jonathan, or say even you address to Zico, dear managing partner of Zico, comma Mr. Jonathan. I'm addressing this thing because I have interest to join your firm, and particularly to work under Mr. Jonathan if it's possible. Then you explain. Don't write to whom it may concern. Don't cut and paste. You know. Also, I notice a tendency of people to write about their personal ambition. They want to do something, and therefore they think by joining RWC or Zico they can do it. Nice and good, but I think the proper, to me lah, again, it's just me. I don't think it's universal. I think proper English is more important. The command of English is more important. When we read your letter, we're actually checking out your English. Because things are so bad now that we're going to make sure that you can actually write in English. You know, I remembered when I was training in 97, 98, this went on until 2010, 2012. English wasn't an issue. It was whether or not we have the ability to think. And I was scolded half the time when I was a pupil because I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do this, I can't do that. So we went through all that too. But English wasn't an issue. But now it's reached a point where language is an issue. Amazing. The more advanced the country become, the worse our language becomes. So your CV or the letter that you sent to me, I will read your English. And kalau kamu tulis dalam bahasa Malaysia pun, saya baca juga. Tak kisah. Itu bahasa kebangsaan. Tulislah. Kita terima. Walaupun bahasa kebangsaan, bahasa Melayu. But don't send me in Mandarin and Tamil lah. Huh? I don't understand. So, that is how I would look at it lah, in GIS.
All right, thank you, Mr. Richard. So what about Mr. Jonathan? What's your perspective on the same question?
Okay, so us in Zico, we have what we call pupils training associates. So we have a training associates committee that will sift through all your applications at the end of the day. And like what Richard said, the harsh reality to any law firm is that the first thing we need to look at is your results. That is the harsh reality, because that helps us sift through the many application that comes in. So it's very unfortunate, I know, that sometimes you may not perhaps just have had a small mishap during law school. It doesn't define you to say that you're not an eloquent lawyer at the end of the day, but the unfortunate thing about the process is that the first thing we look at is your results, yeah? And after we sift through the results, we will also then consider what additional, like what Richard said, activities that you have, activities that are relevant to the field that you want to look into. So to me, I think it's very important to first understand what, as a firm in Zico, we are providing. So you don't write to us and say that, hi, I would like to embark in a criminal law ambition, whereby you know the entire firm doesn't even provide the service for you, services in the first place. We will really appreciate if you are also quite certain in the area that you want to embark in. So the luxury you have with Richard as a boutique firm is that I've experienced in both a boutique firm as well as a large firm like Zico, is that you get to explore different areas of law, and having a robust and vibrant partner like Richard, he's more than happy, I'm very sure, to work with you in new areas that you want to embark in. And that's the beauty for boutique firms. Now, in bigger firms like us, we tend to take specialization a lot more, how is it, seriously, in a sense, because we've got so many different set of partners. We end up having identities whereby we need to make sure that we can demarcate our files, and then thereafter, because we do so much of that particular area, we just end up specializing in it at the end of the end. And that's how eventually I work a bit more in the financial technology sector, while my team is actually TMT. We actually look at telco, media, and technology. I do dabble a bit with telco, I do dabble a bit with media matters, but I do a lot of financial technology related matters at the end of the day. So if you like for the example, like what Richard says, if you want to write to, if today I want to write to Richard's firm, and I want to embark in sports law, I definitely would share with him my enthusiasm in the area, and that's going to be very important. One thing for us, I think I would say that try to differentiate yourself a little bit more. BM English, definitely, in terms of your CV, but I would also push it a little bit more to say that if you're daring enough to translate your CV into Mandarin, if you're daring enough to translate your CV, translate, do not give us an English or Malay copy, translate, because not all of us can read Mandarin. I'm definitely one of the bananas in the firm. We have a Korean desk, we have a Japan desk. So these are little things that we look at, because we have, so again, platform to platform. And as you actually apply for your placement at the end of the day.
Thanks, Mr. Jonathan. So we have several times mentioned about language proficiency, attitudes, and results, which reflects how well you're equipped with law. And also, other than internships, how can a law student gain professional experiences? I think it's quite a general question where we just direct to both of our panels once again.
Well, I try for Jordan. I answer first. Yeah. Good question. Very good question. So I think internship, of course, is crucial. I wish we had internship during my time when I was a student in the 1990s. I remembered speaking to a lawyer. Said, "Sir, can I join your firm for a month?" He told me straight to my face, "You can't learn." He used the S word, which I can't repeat here. You can't learn in 1 month. And it was very blunt to me. So it's a waste of time, and you'll be wasting my time. So lawyers in the 90s weren't very nice, lah, you know. So there you go. For 3 years, I studied law, no internship at all. But yes, internship is very important. In my law firm, internship is a window of talent scouting. We bring in interns in to scout them and see how they can work and deal with us. Some are very talented, but they just can't work with us. So too bad. Then we will recommend them to other law firms. My style is, being a former member of the bar. I was a former young lawyer chairman, as you know. I try my best to, encourage lawyers to develop themselves. And if I see a talent, I recommend to, for example, if I see a lawyer who's really good in technology or likes telecommunication, chances are I call Jonathan. Say, "Hey, Jonathan, Joe, I got this lawyer. You want? I recommend to you." You know, so at least the CV is surrounded within lawyers who, for example, I'm comfortable with. So then, other than webinar, other than this going to internship, attending webinars is very important. Now, I mean, 1 year ago, you say webinar, nobody will watch webinar. Now we have changed our conduct and behavior. Should watch webinars, listen to effective webinars. Not those webinars where the lawyer or the person, the speaker just rattle, talks nonsense. But webinars like this, where the two lawyers are here to share our experiences, you pick up a thing or two from there. And then you can watch some TV shows, Suits and all that will be interesting, but not very accurate to this to describe how we go through. But some TV shows may help, but not necessarily a defining way to learn. But then the other way, of course, I would add in is to say for you to actually, if possible, recreate a law firm within your university. 6 of you join together. Imagine you're a law firm. What would you do? What would you call your law firm to be? Where will you be located? What will you practice? How will you draft? How will you keep your documents? How will you maintain your firm? Who will be the partner? Who will be the associate? Maybe you can do role play in your firm. I know UITM does that, doing quite well. So maybe MMU can consider doing that within yourself. Do a role play for forming a law firm. 2 law firms going up against each other for litigation. 2 law firms going up against each other for a corporate deal. Your lecturers can create a scenario, and then you can invite the prominent lawyers in Malacca, like Desmond Ho or Dato' Ng Kong Peng, or your current chairman of Malacca Bar, Jaspal. They will come and help you. These are examples I can give. And then before I go later, I'm going to pass it back to Jonathan. At the beginning of the show, as I mentioned to you, my firm, we also do things like logistics and all that. And thanks for the shout out for Jonathan about sports law. Terima kasih. It's interesting how we built the sports law work. I want to share with you how our lawyers, who from zero started to build an area which nobody did. And even Jonathan, who the hell heard of fintech before this? but he has carved an area out for himself to do fintech laws. So you must learn from lawyers like this, how the lawyers effectively carve out an area, or especially a new area to practice. I'll come back to that later, but I'll pass it back to Jonathan now.
Thanks, Richard. I'm just gonna echo largely from what Richard said the other day. Internship is crucial, is very important. But I think the principle behind it is also the experience that you're gonna gather. A lot of times, I think a lot of interns comes in with the expectation that I'm going to be shadowing a particular lawyer in court. I should be able to write submission. And I think two things young lawyers like you guys need to bear in mind. Number one, you really need to have patience. You really need to have some tenacity to endure the little menial, so-called little menial work that may come onto your table as an intern. Now, the thing is that as a young pupil, I started off as a pupil in Dishamud those days, and my work as a pupil would encompass things like working with the binding machine. My work will encompass things that allows me to learn how to use the photocopier machine. And if I photocopy the case law slightly singing or out of alignment, I would have to re-photocopy the entire bundle all over again. And what happens when you have to rush for a court of appeal matter? You know how many bundles there are, and it's insane. And I have to come in on a weekend. But what I'm trying to share here is that do not look at how menial the work is, because each and every one of these has a principle behind it, has something for you all to learn at the end of the day. Today, I can proudly say that even without my secretary, I can walk to a binding machine and I can still bind my documents if I need to rush out for a meeting. If on a Sunday, I have a very important meeting on Monday, I can still quickly run to office and sort out my bundle if I need to. So these kind of experiences are very important, but I would also want to encourage all of you to, of course, majority of internship should be with legal firms. But if you do have the opportunity to try shorter internships with consultancy firms or firms that are related to the practice area that you want to, but it's industry, go and give it a try. Because it changes your mindset when you start reading the law again to what the industry is doing. Okay, if you're telling me that I want to jump into fintech today, I want to jump into the digital arena today, and I suddenly have a 2 weeks window or a 3 weeks window with a particular financial technology firm, I say, go ahead and learn. Go ahead and see what they have. Because that helps you open up your perspective when you then look into it, or whether these guys are in full compliance or not at the end of the day.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Richard and Mr. Jonathan. So, okay, as today's discussion also involve around the digitalization of the legal field, how can law students and practicing lawyers get involved in legal innovation in Malaysia, since most of the law schools have not covered such subjects in their syllabus, which also includes sports law. But fortunately to say, MMU, we do offer sports law as one of the electives, and also we have cyber law as one of the core subjects. But I believe that majority law students, they are not equipped with such knowledge. So how can they actually get involved around this world? Mr. Richard, would you like to?
In fact, can I invite Jonathan to speak first? I think this is very much his area. John, all yours.
Okay. I think this goes back to what Richard also shared just now. What happens when there is no regulation in a particular area that you suddenly trample into? What happens? Let me give you an example. Malaysia, we don't regulate AI. We don't regulate artificial intelligence, right? We also don't regulate things like blockchain as a software at the end of the day. So then what happens, right? And a brief comes onto my table and say that, oh, John, let's look into this area. Well, it's the same way as to how, if you want to jump into the legal tech arena, collaterals that are not available in Malaysia does not mean collaterals are not available globally. Collaterals that are maybe used in certain countries like the US, China, are very, very substantial collaterals for you to start formulating your framework when you look into this kind of arena. Now, why I presented Luminance, why I presented e-discovery just now. Luminance technically is a due diligence software, right? Which previously we used body counts for it. Now, as a firm, as a lawyer, as a partner, am I willing to risk that particular information that's being churned out by Luminance itself as a software, if let's say it's inaccurately typed in? So these are the parts whereby when you want to jump into an arena whereby you say that, oh, the current landscape doesn't provide for me, it is for you to then start thinking about the other avenues that could be made available for you to embark into this law. Now, I'm just going to expand a little bit. I had the privilege to judge one of the law hackathons by LawTech Malaysia about a couple of years ago. And I was very impressed with the winner of the entire hackathon itself. And they were made out of 3 young college students, not even legal, right? What they did, they created a chatbot which perhaps could replace a receptionist at a young day. And what did the chatbot do? The chatbot basically pops up, and all they ask is litigation or corporate, and you just click, and it goes to corporate. Corporate, they'll talk about property or non-property related, and then you click property. Is it tenancy or is it sales and purchase? And you keep clicking. You know what that entirely did? That is legal tech to me, because basically it helped me save 50 or 90% of my time in a little small talk to put out a request for information list with a new client before even meeting them. Now that is legal tech in its very, very, very basic form. So if you come up to me and say that because the law school doesn't provide me the avenues for it, then what happens? Look around. Look around what you can do to introduce the gaps. And there was another very, very innovative young set of participants as well. What they did is that they created a PDF, similar PDF software whereby you can paginate every single page of your documents, because when you submit case laws into the court, sometimes you need to do manual pagination if you don't have a software. And then they created softwares like this whereby you can cross-reference, you can eventually change. That again is legal tech, right? So don't isolate yourself to think that legal technology or digital technology is within the 4 corners that I must have a set of books and syllabus to learn about. It's lifestyle, and that's what fintech is at the end of the day. Richard?
Yeah, well said. I totally agree with Jonathan. And for legal work, as you all know now, it's technology is crucial for the movement of our work forward. So even a dinosaur like me, when I started my career, the how fast the fax machine was is very important. And as like Jonathan did, I made it a point to do combining. In my old law firm in 1998, we used to have a competition who can combine faster. So I usually finished last because I was quite bad. But we learned. And eventually now, at any time of the day, I can combine at any time. But it's a skill which is amazingly, after 20 over years, still important. So but for technology, for example, in a boutique firm like mine, we heavily use Google Suites. So everything in our work, we use Google Suites. So you need to understand how it works. You don't really need to have a cyber subject to understand that. You just need to understand how technology works. So on that point, just bring in this. Again, this is not a way, I'm not trying to uncut my firm and sell my firm. I'm just trying to show you that it can be done for areas which nobody has done before. So like sports, for example, how I stumbled upon it was because, well, number one, I love sports. I wish I was a sportsman and not a lawyer. If I had a chance, I would have wanted to be a professional football player. But those days in the 1980s, nobody plays football professionally in Malaysia. If I was in England, I'd probably be a professional football player now. Retired, of course, at the age of 47. But there are many regulations in sports. And again, Jonathan hit spot on. The moment there's regulatory matters or non-regulatory matters and require regulation, we come in. So sports has so much issues on the field of play, VAR, off card or red card, yellow card, badminton, in or out, table tennis, the manipulation of the pad, whether you put sticky pad, cricket, the ball, all these are all regulations. Then off-field regulations, you've got doping issues, integrity issues, governance issues. sports, I've been to MMU to give a talk before, will take 2-3 hours. But the moment you see a regulation, we can go in and advise, and which means we can make ourselves relevant. So same thing like logistics, tourism and hospitality, fintech, startup. Startup is actually a new company on the internet. It's just starting a new company on the internet. No different. But just need to adapt to the technology that's involved. Fintech, as Jonathan spot on, is financial technology. It's like instead of opening your wallet and giving money, I'm not giving you money through the internet. You know, so you need to adapt to it. So as a lawyer, you need to constantly evolve. Even if you do safe areas like conveyancing, safe areas like banking, you still need to evolve. 20 years ago, conveyancing doesn't have things like e-stamping. You know, but now we have e-stamping. Our documentation are all online. It's still slow, land office is still slow, but it's going digital. If you do banking work, oh my God, I did banking work in 1998. To confirm one matter, the document is this thick. Now to confirm one matter is just clicking on this. So it's even banking has changed. So as a lawyer, you really need to learn to adapt, and evolve. Very important. You don't need to have a law subject to do it. But if you have it better, like sports law, you study sports, I guess it's good to understand the theory. And I'm not at all diminishing subjects like cyber law. What I'm trying to tell all of you is that if you come out and you want to do logistics, or you want to do entertainment law, regulation of entertainment, you want to do fashion law, how do you regulate fashion? The intellectual property of the design, the way the model strut the fashion, all these issues, you may want to learn all this. It can be done while you're practicing. But you need to have the earlier skills, the communication skills, the time management skills, all that will slowly build towards someone who is fluid, someone who is able to change form and shape quickly in legal practice. And by the way, Sherilyn, for the record, I don't know about Jonathan, if you want me to go on until 3:45, 4 o'clock, I'm still free. I allocated 2 hours for you guys today. Yeah.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Carolyn, just to write on a little bit more on what Richard said, and it just triggered a thought. See, like for example, back to your question, like Richard is a expert in sports law, right? I may want to embark into esports at the end of the day. Now, would the verticals that he actually understand in terms of the current regulation be able to then allow me to interpret it in the esports vertical at the end of the day? Now, esports is a huge thing in the market today, right? And how do we look at now? He was talking about integrity. He was talking about whether the bet itself, there's some kind of advantage fabricated along the way or not. Now, I could think about having a joypad that could possibly take a better advantage than another player. So these kind of things, like what Richard said, you don't particularly need a subject to help you, but you need the foundation. You need to know the legislation. You need to know the law. But how we would evolve and adopt into the digital world, that will be something that you need to first have a firm foundation.
Thank you for adding on,
Jonathan,
Mr.
if
John.
you want to know esports law, give me a call. I've been advising esports law for the last 4 years, and you're right, it's super exciting. So new. Any lawyer going in, we are going to set the tone for many, many years to come. And I love it.
All right, so thanks, Mr. Richard, and thanks, Mr. Jonathan. Mr. Jonathan, would you have maybe a few more minutes for 1 or 2 questions?
Yeah, sure.
Because actually we have reached the time limit already.
No problem.
Okay, much appreciated. So I'd like to open the floor to the members, whether anyone would like to address any questions to the speakers individually.
Ask Richard all you want. Yeah, this is the only time he doesn't charge.
Is there any questions? Because if there's no question, I actually receive a few additional questions from the students. Maybe they are a little bit shy.
Go ahead. Yeah, just ask.
All right. So this question is actually asking on the method of CV and resume again. So this question goes like, in the legal field, are we restricted in the decorative sense when drafting or designing a CV or resume, where it has to be black and white, or can we actually go with our creativity and make it as nice as possible?
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the question.
If you send me a hard copy CV, which is very rare nowadays, I hardly get a hard copy CV, and you want to spray some nice perfume on it, like the way Legally Blonde girl does it, I have no objections lah. It's nice to get some nice smell. I think I'm not going. It's not going to define the CV. It's not going to make you sure get a job, but people like me, we will respect the effort you put in. But if it's OTT, if it's a bit over the top, then we will wonder whether you're applying for a job or you are trying to be some sort of a designer, you know. So, but unfortunately for lawyers, a lot of lawyers are cut and dry. They have no time for nonsense. We are on the run all the time. So that's why most of our CVs are black and white, square, boring, straight to the point. But I guess some sort of creativity won't hurt. Won't, like I said, I repeat, it won't define you. It may support you, but don't go OTT. Don't go over the top. Jonathan?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to take a stricter approach. Yeah, I would say that what is your objective of beautifying it? What are you trying to achieve by giving me that colorful looking CV, right? I'm a bit traditional in that sense. I'll be like, what you provide me is the impression that you're painting for me in the first place, right? So impression counts. If you're going to give me a rainbow color glittered hard copy CV, it already formulate a perception, and I'll use the word perception, yeah, in my mind as to what kind of individual. I agree with Richard. It's nothing wrong, but this is the profession that you're going into, right? A lot of seriousness is placed in our profession. There's liability involved. So to a certain extent, I'm not trying to deny that if you're a bubbly nature person, you're a happy-going person, you should not express it. But let's not make it too bright and dainty lah. Let me just put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will appreciate you putting a photo. I think that's very, very important.
Yeah.
Please don't give us CV and then we don't know how you look like at the end of the day. And then eventually it's so awkward, right? You walk into the interview room and I'm not sure whether that person that gave me the CV is actually you. If we accidentally misplace or misalign our interviews, then I may actually address you different. Then it kind of cause some embarrassment on my side and your side. So do put a photo, a nice photo. But of course, again, don't go and use one of your Instagram photos or go and use one of your Facebook photos on your CV photo as well. Now, second thing that is very important, it just triggered my mind when I was sharing that. Please also be a bit cautious with your Instagram photos and your Facebook photos. We do our due diligence too. We do also find out what you do through your social media too. Okay, so yeah, act with caution, huh? That's all I'm saying.
Totally agree.
Thanks for the note. Yeah, I also agree on my part. And it's very, very interesting how employers actually look at things from a different perspective. Okay, I have one last question here from Facebook actually. So there's the student, third year student, his name is Alex Tan, and his question goes like this. Good afternoon, speakers. I wish to ask, does Malaysia recognizes the usage of biometrics, which includes fingerprint, face, pupil recognition, in signifying the acceptance of a contract? And I believe that this question actually lies within the expertise of Mr. Jonathan. So, Mr. Jonathan, would you like to enlighten us on this question?
Okay, that's a very interesting, a very technical question in that sense. But maybe what I can give you a very surface explanation is that recently in June, I think June 30th was the date of enforcement. Central Bank actually introduced what we call as electronic KYC, eKYC for financial institution. Now, the eKYC guideline actually caters for onboarding new customers And one of the criteria for authentication is actually biometrics. One of the identity for authentication is either having some form of item whereby it is the customer itself, and of course your fingerprint is the biometric. Now, coming to Alex's question, whether is biometrics in itself something that could formulate and seal a contract. Now that goes back to your ECA, yeah, your Electronic Commerce Act, and whether at the end of the day, when you're looking at that particular biometric, can I identify that it is you? Am I able, so it goes back to your basic law of contract, am I able to identify that that particular biometric is you? Like you have your biometrics recorded in your My Card, if I'm not mistaken, right? And that goes to a central, our Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara. It's confined within that. Now, if you look at it in that sense, if I'm able to tag that biometric to you, then I can identify that party. If you look deeper into the Electronic Commerce Act, there is no real requirement to say that a signature must be in numerics or in alphabetical form. Yeah, so as long as there's a couple of criteria that you need to comply with, as long as it is within your control, you can delete it thereafter. And electronic signature can come within that purview of Electronic Commerce Act itself. I'll go deeper in that on a more personal basis, but on the surface, if you tell me that can I use a biometric to seal a contract, that biometric must first be able to identify you, and it must fall within the purview of it being controlled by you and identified under the ECA itself. Then yes, I would say the answer, you can use that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jonathan. And I think this would be the end of our Q&A session. So members of the floor, thank you once again for your questions and participations. Again, we would like to extend our gratitude to both of our speakers, Mr. Richard and Mr. Jonathan, for the constructive and enlightening discussion, especially both speakers also agreed for the extension of time on the Q&A session. So, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the conclusion of the eLegal Summit Series 2020. We are immensely grateful once again towards both of our speakers to take their time off their busy schedules to be with us here today. And today's discussion was definitely a fruitful one. And I believe that the participants here gained beneficial information from the webinar today. Also would like to honorable mention the committee of eLegal Summit Series to help out in this summit and make it an unforgettable event. So last but not least, we'd like to also extend our greatest gratitude to everyone who has attended the special series of the eLegal Summit Series. Please stay tuned for our last episode, which is on the enforcement of the movement control order brought to by Datuk Sivananthan. So we hope to see you there again. Please do accept our sincere apologies for any imperfections throughout the event. And before we officially end the session, could we request the members in the Zoom platform to open your camera so we can have a photo session together with the speakers?
I must comb my hair first.
Sure. And so I'll pass the time to the committee in charge.
Why is everyone so shy? Switch on your camera lah.